Hello tacticians, it's Nox here and it is update day, but before we go into all the news that I want to cover, I just want to say my quick thank yous, and today they go to Lance Strike, Age of Neoth, Krosnag and player 8742. All of you have used my friend code and it is very much appreciated, as it really does help me out. Now let's have a look at some of the highlights. So let's start with the characters, and the biggest news is there's a brand new faction coming to Tacticus, the Gene Stealer Cults. The very first character will be a Magus called Zybeer Kaiser, who will be unlockable in the Path of Ascension event starting October 13th. So get prepared for that. We have a brand new legendary event coming on November 3rd to get the Patermine, the Gene Stealer Patriarch. And that is something I'm certainly looking forward to, and I haven't even seen the character yet. There's been a massive rework, not only on one orc character, but on two. So Boss Golgorts and Snapperwrecker have both had serious changes done to them, and I will do a separate video on them once I've got access to the test system. Wrask from the World Eaters and Arjac from the Space Wolves both get unstoppable, and considering they were fairly slow characters in Terminator armour, I think that's a nice little change. And talking of Terminator armour, this now reduces the first attack by 75% instead of only the first hit in an attack, which is going to make them a little bit more survivable. Also, and this I think is very cool, units with the Terminator armour trait cannot be suppressed. It's a very small thing and only has the smallest of impacts, but from a lore perspective, it does make sense. Then another rework that we've been waiting for is to the Requisition Scrolls. There is now a mercy system in effect. It's probably not as good as everyone was hoping, but it is a massive step in the right direction. So, if you have not drawn a legendary character in the first 100 scrolls, then every single scroll after that, the chance to get a legendary character starts increasing, which means at 300 scrolls, you are definitely going to get one. Now this is really a rework for new players coming into the game, but it is still a welcome change, as you know, even if your luck has been the worst, eventually you will pull a legendary. Now, admittedly, that legendary could still be a bad one, but we can't have everything. And the other thing to note is campaign rewards no longer use the jar system. Now the jar system is if you had say 10 items in a jar, you'd pull them one by one out, and when the jar is empty, and you've got all the rewards, which could be possible from that jar, the jar is then refilled. This is going away, and the campaign reward system is also going to a mercy system, so you could have longer streaks of not getting anything, but overall, over a certain amount of time, you are going to be getting more rewards. And now let's get into some really juicy stuff. The tournament arena is changing. I've been petitioning for them to make changes to this for a while, and, well, I'm not going to say it was me. Well, it definitely wasn't me, but hey, it was me. I was the one championing changes to this. First off, the epic level of the tournament arena is here. And considering the next two TAs have got epic, I'm guessing it's going to be here to stay. So, if you have a favourite team, start levelling them up. But before you do that, there have been other changes. The first, and I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of controversy over this, is the Armour of Contempt. All characters of the player going second in the TA are going to start the battle with a shield of 100,000 health. And that shield is lost at the beginning of that second player's first turn. So at least this means you're no longer going to lose before you even had a go. The question I have is, does this now mean player 2 will always win? Because they can now charge player 1 and basically win that way with the standard super fast Ragnar, Khan, Mephiston combo. And let's just see how this turns out. It could be that player 1 being able to spread out and not give that perfect charge to Khan may be enough to make sure that that team goes away. All of a sudden, it's not as good because going second means the characters can be spread out and it's not going to do what the people want. So it might be enough, and I would like to see this in effect before I make any comments any further. But this is a small change, and it's a change in the right direction. Then they've added an orbital bombardment, and I think this is going to be needed. At the beginning of round 8 of each match of the battlefield will be bombarded, starting from the outer row of hexes and moving one row inward further per round. The damage of the bombardment is always a percentage of the unit's maximum health, and it ignores all defences and also increases per round. So by the time it gets to the centre, it's probably going to be killing characters. So why do I say this is needed? Well, probably the most exciting thing to happen to the Tournament Arena has arrived. Faction War. Choose your faction, you take those 5 into battle. Now, there are a few factions you can't take in. Tyranids, Blood Angels, and Genestealer cults are not playable. The other factions, which have only got 4 characters, such as the Admech and Dark Angels, they will be joined by a 5th law-compliant ally. Now, we've not been told who that is, and I will update as soon as I find out. But any characters you don't have will be loaned to you. The problem is they will be capped at a common rarity. So if you're going in at Epic, and you don't have all the characters at epic level, the ones loaned to you are going to be at common, and they're just going to keel over and die as soon as they get into combat. Personally, I think this is a fantastic new addition to the Tournament Arena. And I think there are 3, possibly 4 factions which are going to be the best. For me, the standout will be Death Guard. They've got a healer, they're super tough, slow, and they're almost meta even with the Ragnar bomb. The only downside with the Death Guard, and this is probably why they've put the bombardment is it's going to be a long game. I hope you're sitting down and I hope you're comfy, because if you go Death Guard versus Death Guard, it's going to be a long battle. If you want something a bit quicker, I would then suggest the Thousand Suns. These are going to be your Alpha Strike army. And if you can position Yazagor and Abraxas in the right place to get those summons in and swarm the enemy, you could just win. But it could be that the Death Guard are just too tough for them. And finally, there's the Tau. Rayvas is still Rayvas, and Shosil is often used in the TA as well, as is Orn Shi, who can refresh Rayvas's Overwatch, and Shadow Sun. Now, I used to use Shadow Sun as a replacement for Celestine when I didn't have Celestine. So Shadow Sun isn't terrible, she's just not as good as some of the others. So those are my standout picks. I did say a 4th, and the 4th is going to be the Orcs. They are going to be a wild card, and until I've had a look at the 2 new reworks, I'm going to hold fire on what I think they are going to be able to do in the TA. This isn't saying that all the other factions are terrible, but I intend to do a deeper dive into each faction with regards to the TA in future videos, so keep an eye out for those, and I think I might do 1-minute overviews in my shorts. Not literally in my shorts, I mean the short videos. And then we have the infested power-ups, and this is going to be the one where we're going to find out if that Armour of Contempt is any good. But along with this, they've got board balance adjustments, so I'm hoping that it's not going to be an automatic second player win. And again, going to have to hold fire on further information on that until I know more. But this is an exciting time to get involved in the tournament arenas. And as excited as I am about Tournament Arena, Guild Wars, another favourite of mine, has had some big changes too. The first up is they've added the functionality to the missing activity logs tab, which now displays all actions taken by both your guild and the enemy guild during a war, and it shows each member's score contribution, which I think is great quality of life, just so you know who is doing what. The battlefield selection restriction is now based on the total guild power, and I think this is fantastic. It's really going to help all guilds know which bracket they should really be in. And guild officers now have all Guild War setup rights. And I think this is a big one. It's a great quality of life. It's not just going to be down to the guild leaders anymore, and your officers can help run those guild wars. There are some other minor changes as well, which by all means read the patch notes, but they are changing what is in the guild war areas too. They're removing the landing pads from the war zone layout. They're adding a second Medicae station, and both of these stations now give 25% health to the defenders. So 50% overall. And only defending characters receive the buff. Doesn't apply to summons. So this is going to be an interesting take, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out. But not only that, there is now a Warp Rift Warzone. It can't be moved. We don't know where it is yet. And it provides a global Thin Veil buff that gives 20% damage buff to all Psykers, and whenever any non-demon Psyker is defeated, it will summon a random demon in its place. Now, I'm assuming that's going to be either a Bloodletter, a Pink Horror, a Screamer, or the Poxwalker. If all of a sudden we see demonettes popping out, I guess we'll hear lots of people saying, where are the Slanesh units? And this demon will be an enemy to both the attacker and the defender, which I think is kind of cool. There are many other changes in this as well. I would encourage you all to have a read, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you like these videos, then it would be much appreciated if you at least think about using my friend code, as it really does help me out. Or if you or your guilds are looking for a new home, please reach out to any of the guilds shown, as we'll always welcome new people into our midst. As always, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the battlefield.